Welcome back everyone, it's time to go balls deep. She dead. Horikoshi's killing all the waifus. First Midnight, then Crispy Fried Nagant, and now our American star. My Hero Academia chapter 333 honestly blew everyone away. With a moment like this, to a quick 180 with this. The amount of twists and turns is breaking my back.
My back. Oh, my back.
With the introduction of global interest to the threat of All For One, this mini arc gave us the revelation of the strongest hero with the most broken quirk ever. But in under 5 chapters, she dead. Now calm down guys, a lot of us were speculating this from the very beginning. In fact, it was too predictable. It didn't even take 5% of our balls deep prediction quirk to figure this out. However, the question that was on everyone's mind was, will All For One steal the new order quirk? Having the ability to give orders and set rules to objects and living beings is beyond broken, but All For One possessing that on top of his already ridiculous arsenal of quirks will make him godlike. The power balance between the heroes and All For One will shift to an unspeakable degree, leaving only the plot of the story to go in a route where Deku has to pull something out of his ass to equalize. It may be his mysterious second quirk or even the power of friendship.
What did he say?
I don't know why that sounded funny, but that wouldn't really make for an excellent conclusion. Also, All For One obtaining new order will just spit in the face of any international help and essentially make this a quick power up for All For One and Shigaraki on top of the near completion of his vessel. Chapter 333 gives us the alternative which we were all hoping for, continuing on from chapter 332 of Stars and Stripes' failure to nuke Shigaraki before he was able to take the high ground and go straight for her face.
But before we continue, I've got something really cool to show you guys. Today's video is sponsored by Extra Wallets. These bad boys are the world's largest smart wallet brand on the market. Now, you may ask yourself, but ABD, I already have my own wallet. No, bin it now. Because with Extra Wallets, you get a super slim and stylish wallet that is compact and easy to use. You can store all of your cards in it, and whenever you see some of your favorite manga and anime merch and need access to your cards to pay, with a simple click of a button, there they are. It gets better though, because if you're a backer like myself, you may misplace your wallet quite frequently. But Extra Wallet comes with a tracker that allows you to easily track your wallet wherever it is worldwide. Simply use the app to track it. Identity theft is also getting easier and more dangerous, but with the RFID protection of these wallets, you can feel safe knowing that all of your money, cards, and identity are safer than ever. So treat someone you know or even yourself by clicking the link in the description and pinned comment down below to get 40% off with the code AnimeBallsDeep. Now back to the video.
Okay, thank you Harrison. So the chapter kicks off with Demon Lord All For One revealing how he always hated New Order and One For All working together. All For One explains how he went through great lengths in ensuring the delay in international aid by having his friends overseas destroying public order. He wanted to guarantee an easy victory by first completing his transformation and being at his full strength before he was challenged by these foreign heroes, which is why prior to this, All For One has been hunting down All Might and later Deku, as well as training Shigaraki to be his successor to ensure he got his hands on One For All first, before he even attempted to steal New Order, where both these quirks, One For All and New Order, will give him total and complete world domination. This actually answered the question many fans were wondering about on why All For One had left it till now to track down the New Order quirk, saying how it felt random when he was after Deku and All Might for the duration of the entire series so far. However, we learned that the aggressive nature of Stars and Stripes charging straight into battle with the intention of killing All For One made it so that he had to act fast to counter, changing his original plans. This is why, despite Shigaraki's body still not being quite 100% complete as a vessel, he still went into battle, which he did state was a necessary risk he had to take. Which all brings us back to the battle at hand, as Demon Lord Shigaraki's own hand connects with Star's face, decaying her and stealing the new order quirk in the process.
No! God, please, no!
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, this absolute epic fight has finally concluded, and the Demon Lord has won! Or did he? But first, if you're wondering how the heck did this even happen and come to this point, and what even happened to the nuke? Well, let's run it back a bit to the previous chapter 332, and how Shigaraki's big brain plays allowed him to get the dub. Demon Lord Shigaraki was able to play his Uno reverse card by foreseeing the incoming nuke attack, even though Star, using her quirk, was able to control the direction of the nukes, throwing them directly at Shigaraki. It's revealed that he now has full control over his decay quirk and was able to use it to dig deep down into the earth, leaving the normal he was flying on at the surface. This last second switcheroo was what saved his life. In the aftermath of the explosion, a huge crater is left behind, but rather than be the burial place for Shigaraki, he instead jumps out looking like a living corpse as his body is in the midst of regeneration. Had he been a millisecond slower, he would have suffered a fatal wound, but instead the normal up top soaked up the majority of the damage from the lasers and the missile, hence allowing Shigaraki to survive even if it's just by the skin of his teeth. With Endeavor seeing the explosion in the distance, he caught on the fact that something bad had happened. This, along with the constant flashback of Stars and her comrades, further adding up to the foreshadowing that her fate had been sealed by the hands of Shigaraki, literally as we saw in this chapter. Now this fight isn't really about Horikoshi trying to make Shigaraki All For One completely busted as a way to cause panic and tension heading into the final fight, in which we see later in a bit is quite the opposite. But if you look deeply into this arc also acts as a way to parallel Deku's dark journey and to show us an insight into how bad things could have gotten had it not been for Deku's classmates saving him. In fact, this was elaborated further by Zenith Annie in this Twitter thread, which I recommend you guys checking out, where during Deku's retrieval arc, Deku went down a dark path which embodied everything bad about All Might. If you guys watched our reviews back then you will know this, as we pointed it out time and time again about the similarities and parallels between All Might and Deku. This is why it's so important that you guys subscribe and ding that notification bell so that you guys are kept informed and up to date with the rest of the community and you don't miss any future videos. Anyways, All Might was destined to die by Night Eye after ignoring medical assistance to go out and continue fighting villains alone after his original fight with All For One. He was so obsessed with the Symbol of Peace title that he ignored all the help around him and continued down a lonely, heroic path, which ultimately led to All Might we have now. Deku also began walking the same path with the aim of keeping his friends safe, thinking this self-sacrifice was for the greater good, even aesthetically, as his once bright costume and warm smile became a dark, smelly, tramp-like mess of a costume that resembled that of a villain, and everything wrong about All Might. Stars and Stripes, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. Whilst Deku drowned himself in All Might's darkness, she gave off the true sense of heroism and the power that All Might once had. But in this case, she was dressed in a bright USA-inspired outfit, just like All Might, but turned up to a 10, changing up the two-pronged hairstyle into an 8-pronged one to prove that she's all that is supposedly right about All Might. But apart from the comparison of idealization and inspiration both Deku and Stars had for All Might, the analogous nature the two share goes even deeper, as they both were also on a journey to locate and defeat All For One once and for all, which All Might failed to do. But even then, their paths parallels. Whereas Deku went alone in his mission to find Shigaraki and All For One, actively trying to escape any help he could get, Stars on the other hand had found Shigaraki and engaged in combat. She had also taken her brothers in arms with her, orchestrating her attacks with them, working as a team. Even in this chapter whilst dying, she thanks her brothers for everything they had done. Knowing there was no other way out, she decided to go down for the self-sacrificial route, even though her brothers in arms were willing to risk their lives. As we know, they were the ones there for her when she was younger, being ridiculed for her level of strength, not being able to replicate All Might, having the blame being put on her being a woman. Even during those hardships she faced, they stood by her and acted as her strength, reassuring Star that she was not the problem. However, with Deku, who went all alone, he never reached All for One, but he was saved before the encounter could even happen, whereas Star ultimately paid the price, sacrificing herself for the safety of her comrades and the world, which indirectly acts as an example to the readers what would have happened to Deku if he actually fought All for One all alone like he set out to do so. The symbolism in this fight, however, does not end there, as Stars and Stripes represents an actual star, shining brightly, leading everyone down the right path with her admirable morals and great power, whereas Shigaraki is a former star which got consumed by the black hole before it could shine brightly, acting as a metaphor about how All for One manipulated Shigaraki, who dreamt of being a hero, into becoming a villain with the taste of casting darkness across the world. To All for One, he sees himself snuffing out another star in Stars and Stripes, consuming her as the black hole he is once again. This is actually more important than that of All for One obtaining New Order. If Star ended up meeting Deku, her light would have just resonated with his, pushing Deku's growth even further, increasing the threat Deku would have had with his quirk One for All. And this goes back to chapter 333, where All for One mentioned how One for All and New Order were always working together. Now I'm going to pass the video over to Harrison, who's going to go over the twists and turns that you probably did not expect.
Thank you, Yusuf. Now, coming back to Demon Lord Shigaraki's attack on Stars, to save herself from decay, she tries to make a rule that her body will not decay. However, this fails miserably. This is because, as we explained in our last review, the New Order quirk is limited when it bestows an incremental buff to a living being. This is visualized as a barometer, and the buff seems to be limited by the maximum potential of the target. So being immune to decay is a massive increase in physical enhancement, which is quite simply just above Stars' potential. Therefore, Shigaraki's decay still works. All for One excitedly laughs at her stupidness, as he used his decay quirk at the same time he was absorbing her New Order. Feeling as though he has won, he thinks how from today onwards everything truly begins for him, as he reminisces about the time he and his brother Yuichi were younger, reading the comic that made All for One want to become the Demon Lord he is today. In chapter 193, All for One shares his aspiration to become the Demon Lord after the Captain Hero comics, but Yuichi points out that the Demon Lord of that comic loses. In that flashback, we did not see All for One's response, rather he just went off like a megalomaniac. However, in this chapter 333, All for One finally addresses Yuichi's points. He reveals that he knew the comics continued, but he chose not to read it any further. In many ways, knowing he lived in a hero-fulfilled society, I'm sure that All for One predicted how the author of Captain Hero would end his story. The concept of the villains or the Demon Lord losing was propagated with an agenda. It was just simply bias. And so, All for One wanted to write his own ending to that story by using the mechanism of reality and self-dependence. At the end of the day, in All for One's mind, if he succeeds, then the Demon Lord from the comic will also be triumphant. All for One just wanted his comic book idol to get a W. At this point, All for One tries to use his newly acquired New Order quirk for himself. However, before he can finish making a rule, Stars and Stripes appears before him in the Vestige world. She had made a rule that made New Order revolt against other quirks, which is the perfect counter to All for One, who has a completely busted arsenal of quirks that give him the ability to do nearly anything. Stars explains that she wanted to go plus alpha, which seems like the American version of plus ultra, I guess, so that she could save her body. But in all cases, she was ready to die in order to take down All for One. We see Shigaraki's body begin to tear apart as it gets eaten up from the inside because the New Order quirk, which has taken the form of Stars and Stripes, is now acting like a virus inside of Shigaraki's body. She is destroying all the quirks he has stolen over the years and making them rebel against each other. We see the giant monstrous monstrous version of herself, tearing apart and fighting each silhouette in the Vestige world, ripping them out of All For One. Each of these souls refer to the quirks All For One had stolen from other people. If you remember, a person's quirk factor encapsulates part of the person's personality and soul, which is why All For One was able to become a vestige inside of Shigaraki using his quirk factor. Likewise with the previous users of All For One in Deku's vestige realm. These souls in All For One are representations of people the quirk used to belong to, as part of them was always absorbed. In his panicked state, All For One comes to the conclusion that he has to pass this New Order quirk onto somebody else before he loses all of his other quirks. He tries to give it to the pilots, however they continue firing their lasers at him because Stars has not given up, so neither should they. They can't let her sacrifice be wasted. All For One tries to reflect the lasers back to them, however his reflect quirk is now broken to the point where it's basically unusable now. Honestly, this was such a big brain play from Stars and Stripes. Seriously, none of us saw an outcome like this coming. Yes, many expected her to die as the writing was on the wall, but I don't think anyone expected her to turn herself into a virus that eats away at All For One from the Vestige world. This was absolutely crazy!
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm!
Whilst she is eating away at him, her body in the outside world continues to turn to dust, as she gives one last salute with a smile and thanks All Might for inspiring her to pursue her dream and live an incredible life. And so the chapter ends with All For One panicking, screaming at Star saying, "All Might's ghost!" This is referring to the fact that even though All Might as a hero is dead per se, his spirit lives on. In the same way that Deku is the hero that inspired Kota, All Might inspired Deku, Star, and nearly an entire generation of heroes. No matter where All For One goes, All Might is there stopping him. Even in chapter 330, Shigaraki said how there's just no escaping him. One thing I want to mention here, which is some beautiful poetic justice for All For One, is how this conclusion parallels perfectly with what happened to Lady Nagant. We see in chapter 315 during Deku's fight with her that as soon as Deku had changed her mind, she exploded from the inside because of a contingency plan All For One had attached to the quirk that he had given her. Back then we saw Nagant smile as she began to explode whilst All For One laughed. Well, fast forward back to this fight and Stars and Stripes also smiles whilst she decays. But this time it's All For One who screams in terror, as Star was the one who this time made All For One explode by putting a contingency plan in place on the quirk that she gave to him. Essentially, it's like karma for the son of a bitch. Now the question is, what does All For One do next? It could be that when Star's real body finishes decaying, the rule will just simply cease to exist. This would make sense, however, she did cast the rule that Kathleen Bate will not decay. We saw that this seemingly had no effect. However, although her physical body will decay, the Kathleen Bate inside the New Order quirk rampaging the Vestige world will not. Also, we have to understand that some part of Kathleen will always be alive as long as her quirk is still active. When All For One had taken it, just like his vestige, Kathleen's will not disappear. In turn, if he doesn't give the New Order quirk away in time, it's likely that he will die. The reason being is that All For One's collective personality and memories are attached to the All For One quirk which he gave to Shigaraki. However, it's still a quirk and can be devoured by Stars' New Order revolt. So what we think will happen is that he will end up passing it along to the nearby Nomu who is flying by. Like, what are the chances this Nomu apparently survived? It's a different Nomu? I don't know. Like, where did it come from? I guess he sent a signal. I don't know. But who knows? Although it's unlikely, maybe All For One can salvage the New Order quirk through this Nomu. All For One would happily sacrifice the quirks that the flying Nomu has in exchange for New Order. This also then nerves New Order going into the final fight, as the Nomu will have limited intelligence, meaning it won't really be able to use the quirk to its full potential. That being said, I doubt that will be the case, as I'm sure the New Order quirk will just rampage rampage inside the Nomu as well. Effectively, Stars sacrificed herself knowing that no one can ever use her quirk again. Let us know what you think in the comment section down below though. How does All For One come out of this? Can he still come away with a dub, or is he just gonna have to accept his huge L? Let us know down below. Also make sure to check out the merch at animedrip.shop in the pinned comment and link down below. Ding that notification bell so you never miss a future video. Thank you all for watching and we'll see you guys next time.